Hi guys, if you're new to the channel, we are Andy and Melissa, and with our two boys, Jack aged 12 and Oliver aged 1, we're making final preparations to our 50-year-old classic sailing yacht, because in the middle of May we're setting off to sail very slowly around the world. In this episode, we finally sort out our second-hand anchoring system to get it all working as it should. Do you know what really bugs me? Is all of this flaking grey non-slip paint on the fiberglass and all of the varnishing and sanding and finishing that I've still got to do in the cockpit. But none of those things are dangerous. They're just annoying. What is dangerous is not having a working anchoring system. And yes, I know you can pull your anchor in up hand over hand, but it's flipping hard work, and you're more likely to hurt yourself. And as you know, if you've been watching, we had a problem with our anchor windlass. I installed it in Dartmouth very quickly as a get you home measure. I was trying to do about 50,000 jobs in the space of a week, and it was fine, worked great. But last week, or maybe the week after, I can't remember now, losing track of episodes, I took it off the boat to reseat it properly, and we've got it back from the engineering shop. And here it is. Now, the reason it was in the engineering shop, flippin' heck, it's heavy, is because one of the studs in the underneath, that one, had sheared off. It's actually, they're not bolts, they're what's called all thread. It's this stuff. So I'm going to make new ones. But I tried in vain to get that piece of stud out. I ended up dropping it at an engineering shop in Bangor. I did ask him if he wanted to be on the YouTube channel, and he said, oh no, I've got plenty of work and I don't really want cameras pointed in my face, which is totally fine. But he tried to get the bolt out, couldn't get it out himself. He said there's no way you would have done it with a stud extractor. It doesn't matter how good quality it was. It was so in there so tight. So what he did is he drilled it out oversized, and he's used a thing called a helicoil. So we've now got 4 good solid mounting holes. I'm going to run my own tap set, I think, into the old 3 just to clean them up. But my job today is to see how much progress I can make installing this winch properly this time. Obviously, being an anchor windlass, these things draw a ton of power. So I've bought this heavy duty, this is 40mm square. This is all, by the way, it's Ocean Flex tinned marine grade cable. I've bought a breaker. This is a 200 amp breaker. So I'm going to start by looking inside this and looking at changing some of these cables. So the new wiring is in place in the windlass. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is run a tap through these threads, as I say, to clean them out. And then make this whole mounting system to mount the windlass onto our new plinth. A couple of people mentioned last week when I said I'd made that it'll rot. Well, it's made of oak. Maybe it will. Maybe I've made it from the wrong material. But that's what I've got. Okay, we're on a budget. I can't afford to go out and buy new stuff. If it lasts 2 or 3 years and I have to replace it with some plastic or phenolic board or something else, then so be it. But I've made that for now, so I'm putting that on. And you know, I'm doing it in such a way that if I have to replace it in a couple of years, it shouldn't be too huge a job. And I don't think it will rot. I mean, it's oak and it's heavily varnished with epiphanes. I think it'll last a good while, but I accept I may be wrong about that. Right, our plinthy thing has all the holes drilled in it. I'm going to dry fit it first, and in order to do that I need to go and take all the chain out of the chain locker, don't I? Apart from the hose pipe, which I've cut from some stainless steel 304 tube. I'm also using some tube here to put down the bolt holes. The deck is cored at this position, so I'm going to put some big beefy spreader plates on the back, and I'm going to put these tubes on so that when I tighten up on the bolts, the nuts on these threaded bars that hold the whole assembly down, it doesn't crush the core in the deck of the boat. I'm going to try and drill these holes out big enough to accept this tube here. I've drilled the holes for these tubes, and as I say, the purpose of these is so that when I crank down on the bolts that hold this down, it doesn't crush the core in the deck. So I've got 4 of these that are 50mm long, and they are now the exact same thickness as the deck, so when I crank down on those bolts, it's not going to crush the deck, it'll crush these tubes, which they won't crush because they're tubes, and tubes don't crush. Right, I'm going in there with, this is still a dry fit. I've not sealed any of this up yet. I want to make sure everything fits perfectly before I put Sikaflex or epoxy or whatever it is I use to seal it up anywhere near it. I'm going in there with my 4 standoff tubes, my 2 spreader plates, and yes, I'm putting the spreader plates on now because I want to make sure that the studs are long enough. I've got some spare studs, you know, I've got plenty of this, but I want to make sure it's all long enough. Nuts, washers, and all of that stuff. So I'm going to put them there because I can just about reach them. Okay, and that one. So these pieces of aluminium tube that I've put on, I'll put some anti-seize paste on. The purpose of those is to stop the core crushing, because you can see in the moulding this area of the fiberglass is slightly thicker, so that's solid, this is cored, and the core goes up to there. Look, there's the core, this is solid fiberglass again here, so that's great. But because the windlass is on a cored area, a couple of people mentioned this and they're dead right, I need to basically put whacking great big spreader plates on, and ideally, which is what I'm doing, something to stop the core from crushing. Go on and get on there. Lovely. Because the holes have been drilled not perfectly straight, the spreader plates aren't going to fit. Ah, you swine. But this is exactly why a dry fit is so important. Okay, so where are we up to? Well, everything lines up now. I've got my spreader plates on. This is still a dry fit. This stud is too short, so I'm going to use some of this to make a new one. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. So long as you've got 3 or 4 threads sticking out of the end of the nut, then you're all right. But I don't want the bar buried in the nut like that. That's not secure enough. So that's good. I'm not wiring this up yet until it's all, you know, sealed in place. And I'm not going to do that until tomorrow morning because the shops are all shut. The last thing that I want to just check is this. Yeah, look at that. So I'm going to make a collar for that as well, and make so that the chain will come down through this tube, and that will all be properly sealed as well. Now there's another couple of things that I want to fit in here. The couple of things that I want to install up the front end. I want to fit an isolator key, so that if there's an accident and somebody's hair gets caught in the windlass, or we have a runaway problem, or there's a, you know, electrical problem, we can just isolate the windlass from outside on deck. You can see there's a problem, just turn the whole power to it completely off. And then the other thing is we've got this whale washdown kit. This is the section that goes in at the front of the boat. So you basically, can you see that? You've got an on-off switch, so I need to get power to it eventually. So I've got a cut out for this in the front end. So I want to install that and that. Let's go and have a quick look then of where exactly I'm going to put this stuff. Up the front here in the bow, there's this locker, which originally would have been for the anchor itself. But I'm thinking in here would be a great place to install our deck wash outlet and our isolator. Here we've got the cables that go to that remote switch for the windlass. I reckon I can put the isolator key pretty much next to that, and then this is the hose pipe, so just a few centimetres forward of the hose pipe I can put this thingy. Right, I'm going to tidy up and I'm going to come back tomorrow morning. So it's the next day, and as promised I'm back to carry on with the Anchor windlass, but I've just got to do one thing, so I'll be back in 2 seconds. There you go, that's a bit of an improvement, isn't it? Right, now I can start sealing down the Anchor windlass and sorting out the wiring at last. I'm using this stainless steel tube, as I said, as a hose pipe. I've just cut a plywood ring, I'm going to make that in hardwood. But that goes down here. But to stop it, to adjust the height of it, I'm going to seal it, of course, all the way around once I've got it in the right position. But what I thought I could do to stop it dropping all the way through if the seal breaks, I'm going to epoxy it probably in place as well, is I'm going to drill through and put a captive nut on the inside and then a bolt from the outside with a washer, so that I can then put tension on the sidewall of this tube, which should clamp it in place. I'm just using some 15-minute fast drying epoxy, not to glue anything in place, just to seal up the core around the inside of these larger holes. All I want to do to begin with is seal this up with epoxy, and then of course I will, on top of that, I'll seal it up with Sikaflex when I bond the whole unit down as well. So this glue, it's just the same as any normal epoxy, it's just faster drying, so I can get on with the job. Pretty cack-handed at that kind of thing. I'm never any good at using Sikaflex and sealants. It just goes everywhere. But I did mask off, and I think it's okay. Melissa would have done a better job. It'll be fine. Right, the next thing for me to do is to put these tubes on. Do you remember I cut them so that when I'm bolting the windlass down, it doesn't squash the core? And this is going to be really messy. I actually don't know how to do this, because that's aluminium, the same material as the casing of the windlass itself. So I'm putting anti-seizing paste on the inside of this tube, and I'm just going to use this old jigsaw blade to kind of smear some stuff in there. And then as it goes in, I want to put Sikaflex on the outside, because although I've run epoxy into those holes to kind of help protect the core of the boat, it should never get wet under there anyway. It's, you know, there's so much stuff there. It'll get wet in there, won't it? I'm going to do my best to seal all of this up with Sikaflex on the outside and anti-seizing paste on the inside. This is some stuff that somebody from the States sent us, Ultra Tef Gel. Forget your name. I'm so sorry. I've got an awful memory with names, but it's really good stuff. And it just basically creates a barrier, an environment where the aluminium and stainless can't react with each other, or reduces that effect, put it that way. Everybody at home is poorly. Melissa and Ollie have both got horrible colds. It actually sounds like croup or whooping cough, which is going around. So they're all very sorry for themselves. I'm not feeling great. I'm on the boat, and I'm going to sit here for a little while, because the other day when I was in the chain locker putting that Sikaflex and all that goopy stuff on the bolts to hold the windlass down, of course all my tools got covered in Sikaflex and stuff. So I'm sitting here with Harry Potter on the telly and a cloth over my lap so I don't get Melissa's upholstery all manky, and I'm just going to sit here and do some housework and clean my tools. I've procrastinated long enough cleaning spanners. I'm going to go back in and start wiring up the windlass to the relay. Yeah, it's tight in here. It's very tight in here. I'm very claustrophobic. So what I've got to do, these are the cables coming down from the windlass that I've wired up. I'm going to take them into this junction box here. This is a relay, and the way this works is the switch puts a small voltage across it, which makes the big voltage go forwards or backwards. So this black wire here has got to go to this one. One of these red wires has got to go to that one, and one has got to go to that one. And then if I get them the wrong way around, I'll just swap these and it'll go forwards or backwards. And as I've mentioned before, I'm using a special cable by a company called Ocean Flex, which is a marine grade tinned cable, which suffers a lot less from the corrosion that you tend to get from salt water on normal wire. Okay, a bit hot and sweaty in here. That I'm quite pleased with. I'll just show you quickly. Oh, you've just been watching me do it. That there is the control box for the anchor windlass. So I've got the two big, that's not wired up yet, the two cables coming in from the batteries, and we're going to talk about that in a sec. And they go to this big solenoid. This little harness that I've made goes to the remote switch, and that controls the windlass. Now I've got to wire in the isolator key, which I put there yesterday. Look, there's plenty of room. It doesn't look like there is, but there is. And this is the main positive feed from the battery bank. But before it goes into the isolator key, I'm basically putting in this breaker. Not a fuse, it's basically a fuse, okay? I'll just turn that so it's not blinding you quite so much. There you go. It's basically a fuse. It works the same way. When this hits 200 amps, it goes like that and it trips off, just like the breakers in your, RCD in your house, similar sort of thing. And then you reset it by pushing that little lever up. Obviously, I don't want to fuse, because if we're trying to lift the anchor and it gets caught in, I don't know, a lobster pot or something, and it overloads the windlass and this trips, I don't want to be fishing around for anchors for fuses in the bottom of a drawer somewhere. This you can just reset. But I also want it to be somewhere where I can get to it fairly easily. And I think in the back of the locker in the forepeak will be fine. The further I delve into this boat, the more things I find that I think, oh, I need to do that, and I need to do that, and I need to do that, and I need to do that. And because I've got probably got a bit of ADHD, my brain wants to go off on all those tangents, but I can't. I've just got to stay focused. I already put a hole here ages ago when I first installed the windlass as a get your home jobby, like I say. I put the isolator key in the forepeak. Now that's kind of a silly thing to do, because then if somebody does get their hair caught in it or a finger trapped, or for some reason you have to just shut it off now, you don't want to be dashing down here in an emergency to shut the windlass off. But to have that there isn't a problem. If you've overloaded the windlass and the motor is stalled and it's tripped the breaker, it's not because somebody's got their arm trapped in it, is it? It's just because it's trying to lift a lobster pot and it's struggling. So I'm going to put that here and utilize the same hole.
Right, £69.50. Have you got your wallet there?
Can do. Let me just heat shrink this piece of cable then. So while I'm heat shrinking this cable, we are actually applying for Ollie's passport so that we can head off, because we're planning to sail down to the south coast and stay there for my daughter's wedding, and then leave in July to go across the channel and into Europe. And of course we need to make sure that Ollie's got his passport sorted by then. So that's what Melissa's doing on the phone to me right now. I'm just heat shrinking this cable, darling, and then I'll go and get my wallet. Right. What do you need? The card details. 6.
Yeah.
90.
AG Turner.
Yeah, there you go. Just come up on my phone. You paid £69. Right, that's exciting. Ollie's passport is ordered, and I'm making up these new cables. So I've been setting it up with some of the old ones, but this is brand spanking new, as I say, cable. There's one or two little pieces. There's one or two pieces in there that there's no need to replace. I'm not about wasting stuff, and I'm not about changing something that is perfectly fine. But as a rule, I think with this, I'm kind of going mostly new. So what I've got to do now is take this red cable across to the back of the isolator key, so that the power supplying the windlass goes through both a breaker and an isolator. This one is basically your on-off switch that you turn on or off manually, and then the other one is an automatic cut-off if it gets stuck or stalls or anything goes wrong. So that's our setup. We've got the main cables coming in from the battery. I've checked this red one. I haven't replaced it, but I've checked it and it's in good nick, and it's a smaller outer cable diameter, but it's 40mm squared on the inside. This black is 40mm squared. These are all 40mm squared. These are 25, but they're the same. They're the original same diameter. I've put new cables on, but they're the same cable diameter as what's on the actual windlass from the Vitas factory. So I'm figuring that's fine. These ones go through to the breaker, those go through up to the isolator key. So before I go any further, I'm just going to wire these up to the batteries and make sure that they actually work, and I haven't messed anything up on the cabling. I don't think I have. So this is just the test fire. This isn't the full thing. This is just to make sure that I've not messed anything up. Just connected up the battery. I'm going to nip outside, turn the isolator on. It's all horrible weather out here as well. Right, okay. So I've wired it up wrong. Pants. I found the problem. I haven't wired it up wrong. I've wired it up right, but in all the fiddling and faffing around, I've dislodged a wire here. Look, this is where the remote plugs in, and that wire was touching these. So I need to remake that and make it good. You know, it makes me laugh. It's me banging on, oh, what a really robust anchoring system that's never going to break, and blah, 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 blah. And all these manufacturers are saying, oh, you know, we've got this really robust system and it's bomb-proof, bulletproof. Maybe so. But it all hangs on a little button in your hand, like this. It all hangs on that, right? Which connects with 3 tiny little pins to these 3 tiny little wires, which is fine. But if these 3 wires break, which is what had happened, just from being manhandled in, you know, me doing sort of a reinstallation, if one of those 3 wires breaks, the whole system stops working. And, you know, okay, I've put this system together now, so I know exactly how it works, and I could rip it apart in a trice and fix it. But you don't want to be doing that out at sea in a Force 9, do you? It just makes me laugh, you know, that however robust the system is, it all hangs on a few piddly little wires. And there's no way around that. If somebody can design a system that doesn't hang on little tiny soldered wires, they're doing better than me. Okay, take 2. I'm going to plug the remote on I've already connected up the battery, I've wired up that little new harness that I've made, and I'm going to turn the isolator and see what happens. Here we go. Oops. Perfect. Look at that. We now have a working windlass. I've just got to finish off the battery tray, wire the two batteries together and put a clamp over the top of them, I think. I am aware, by the way, that it's disgusting and dirty in there, and once I've finished all of this work I've got to have a really good clean up, but I won't do that as part of this episode because you don't need to see me cleaning up to know that it's happening, and the episode's long enough already. Right, last little bit of the episode, finishing off that battery tray. Right, it's been an absolute mammoth job this. It's actually taken me about 5 days, so it's probably going to be quite a long YouTube episode, but it's 5 days work because obviously Melissa's not well with a cold, Ollie's not well with a cold. I've been dashing backwards and forwards to the house, which is absolutely fine, and I love it. I'm loving just being able to focus on one boat. Let's put it that way. I can already see things that I'm not happy about and that I want to change. But I haven't got time to change them now because Ollie's not well, Melissa's not well, Jack's at a homeschool thing, so I've got to pick Jack up and go home and just be a dad for a bit. So I'm going to come back to this, but I'm not in this episode because I think this episode's full enough already. But things I'm going to change about that: I think the pigtails between the two batteries are too long. I want to make those shorter. I want to rearrange those cables slightly so that I can put a single piece of something, maybe not even timber, maybe some fiberglass or something, over the top of the batteries so that if anything falls in there, it can't contact the terminals. I just want those terminals to be properly protected. So now the system is completely secure. It all works, the remote works, the windlass is bolted down completely securely, the batteries are completely secure, the wiring is pucker. I just want to make the pigtails shorter and protect the terminals on the top of the battery. With that said, I'm going to go home and focus on being a dad for a little bit. See my little boy Ollie, who's not very well, pick Jack up from homeschool group, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, of course, as always, to our patrons. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/sailingmelody. Thanks to anybody who's donated through Super Thanks and Coffee and PayPal. I will say, with the Super Thanks, it's a link in YouTube. You can just put a comment in a Super Thanks. YouTube take like 50% of that. So if you do want to do a one-time donation, it's really generous of you guys, but probably better off using the paypal.me/sailing melody. The link's in the description at the bottom of the video, because the Super Thanks thing, YouTube take like a huge cut of that, which I think is a bit naughty of them, really. Right, see you next time, guys. Love you all. Bye bye.